Hi, it's Sandra here from Create in Spain, and today I wanted to show you what I've made. And this is my new stamp positioning tool. It is made from toughened glass, and I have some foam underneath here. And the thing that is the most important is this hinge. What I did was I purchased, because I happened to find them, I purchased two worktop savers, glass worktop savers. And because they were cheapy ones that I found in the Chinese, firstly, they were flat glass, they're not texture glass. And secondly, I could tell that the picture that was put on the back of it was either paper or something like that. It hadn't been painted on. So I bought a couple of them and brought them home and unwrapped them and found, yeah, sure enough, it was a kind of like painted vinyl that they'd put on the back for the picture. So I could literally peel most of it off and it wasn't difficult to remove. So that left me with two pieces of glass. Now, what I did discover at that time was that although they are supposed to be identical, they're not exactly cut. And yeah, this is €2.50 from the Chinese, so you know, how accurate do you expect? So one was slightly bigger than the other. So it's worth noting, if you do actually buy anything, that that might be the case. And so I had these pieces of glass, and my original idea was to do a take on the IKEA frame type one. So you have a picture frame like this, you have a hinge in the centre, and yeah, you work it that way. Slight problem because this is plastic and I couldn't get the hinges to stay on. My husband tried everything. He thought it was probably unwise to try and drill. But the other thing is that what I couldn't get the hinges to stick to was the glass, even though we were using a special mixed up adhesive. It just didn't stay. And I thought, oh, what am I now going to do? Because my old stamp positioning tool had eventually fallen to pieces and the hinges were broken. I had some clear acrylic hinges and the hinges are broken. So I didn't want to A, wait for 6 weeks for some more hinges to arrive, or B, have another lot of hinges break at a later date and get the same problem. So I didn't quite know what I was going to do, and I've tried numerous bits and pieces until I hit on the solution. And the solution was very, very simple in the end of the day. This black vinyl. Now I get this from a local DIY shop and it's a sticky back vinyl, and I'm guessing that they sell it for wall decoration and things like that, because I don't know what else you'd use it for really, unless you want to block out light from windows or something, but it's a bit excessive. So anyway, I get this stuff and I use it for all sorts of things, and it's a very high quality vinyl and the adhesive on the back of it is extremely good. And I've got that because what I tried previously was to wrap this with some duct tape, and the duct tape wouldn't stick to the glass either. So I was thinking, oh, I wonder if this will work. So I cut out a piece of the vinyl and I worked out the gap needed between these two plates, basically by putting the foam on first. Underneath here, I've just stuck this on temporarily. Underneath here is draft excluder. It comes in a coil like this, just normal draft excluder. So I'd put that around the edge, and I had printed out some squared paper, and I used the square paper underneath the glass to line up the square edge so that it would be square, because my glass isn't square. Okay, I couldn't go by the edge of the glass, I had to use something else. So I printed this out, put it underneath, and then lined it up with that. So I did that, and I wrapped some tape along the front, wrapped it around and made it go to the back. But of course then that leaves a very sort of flimsy bit in the centre. So I took a piece of craft foam, an A4 sheet of craft foam, and I used my guillotine just to cut off a strip of foam like this. And I laid it in between the two plates of glass. And then I put another strip of the black vinyl over the top. And it works a treat. Ta-da! And this stuff is really, really well stuck onto the glass. That's not going to go anywhere. Now, I don't know how long this will last. I'm hoping that it will last a fair length of time, but even if it doesn't, all I have to do is remove some tape, put some more foam in, and I've done it again. It's not really a problem. 5 minutes and I'd be set, ready to go again. Under here I have one thick piece of foam. It's the same stuff that this is cut from. And what I did with the graph paper was I got some clear self-adhesive plastic, put it over the top of the graph paper, and then I used my temporary spray adhesive, the one that I normally use for sticking my cutting mat, and I put it on the back and the front, so I can peel this off if I wish. This surface is tacky. Now the reason I did that is because I have found, although I had previously used magnetic sheeting that you can cut, the magnetic sheeting is not very magnetic. I have some really, really strong magnets, but I found that even with a normal, fairly thin card like this, when I put my stamps, because I use not silicone stamps, because I use polymer stamps and they can be quite tacky, every time I stamp something, the paper would lift up as well, and that's definitely not something that I'm interested in happening. So now I have it sussed so that it doesn't do that. Now if you're wondering about these images, this one was printed 3 times, that one was twice, and I will show you what happens when I ink this up. Flip it over and press, and I'll do it again. And I deliberately chose quite a fine image so it would show up if anything had moved. There we go. I'll do it again. There we go, it's fine. What I did find with the centre strips, you have to be careful how thick or thin you have it. If you have it too thick, when you go to close this, it won't quite meet on here, so that will be too thick. And if it's too thin, obviously you're still going to get a little bit of wobble in the joint, which obviously you don't want. So I guess that is probably about a centimetre, something like that, just under a centimetre. And that will depend on how thick your glass plate is, I would imagine. But I am very happy with this. I think it's worked pretty well. I've put a piece of foam on the back as well. It's just craft foam again. And yes, I know it's a bit blingy. It just happens to be what I had that was, you know, a good thickness to put on there. So the 2 worktop savers, that cost me €2.50 each. I already had the vinyl, I already had this. The graph paper I just printed from a file on my computer, and I already had the sticky stuff and bits of foam and so on anyway. So I didn't have to go out and buy a load of extra materials to make it. I think it actually looks quite neat. I did originally have some tape around the outside edge and I decided, no, I don't even want that. I am just going to have it nice and plain and classic as it is. Okay, I hope you find that useful. And, you know, if you can find yourself some plain pieces of glass like that, then, you know, it's a cheap way of doing it. I was originally thinking of ordering the new Tim Holtz stamp positioner, and then I found I can't find anywhere in Spain to order it from, or pre-order it, so tough, not going to do that. The other thing I wanted to show you is this, and I know it looks terrible, but there's nothing coming off on my hands on this. And if you happen to live in Spain, now where did I put them? If you happen to live in Spain, you can get these from Dante. Okay, €1. That is folded over, so it's bigger than that. And I cut it into smaller pieces because I don't need them any bigger than that. Just damp it down and use it to clean your stamps, and it's absolutely brilliant. There are products that you can buy that do the same thing, but basically I don't see the point in spending about €12 plus postage to get something that will cost me €1 in a local shop. And so there we go, that's it for today. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed. Take care now, bye bye.